They thought she was just a maid until her curse destroyed the palace. Hello guys, welcome to Tales by Zikora, where the stories your grandmother whispered by firelight finally get the ending they deserve. If this is your first time here, pull up a chair because tonight's story is not a small one. Before we begin, tap that like button, hit subscribe, share this with somebody who needs a good story tonight, and drop a comment telling us where you are watching from. All right, settle in, because she is waiting. Her name was Zara. She was born in Kova, a small, dust-kissed village tucked between two tired hills at the edge of the kingdom, the kind of place that maps tend to forget. But Zara? Zara was impossible to forget. She moved through Kova the way water moves through cupped hands, gentle, purposeful, and quietly beautiful. Her laugh made the neighbors stop what they were doing just to hear it again. Her eyes carried warmth, which made strangers feel like old friends. She was 21 when everything changed. Her father Kofi had grown too sick to tend their farm. Her mother Shade sold firewood by the roadside and prayed twice daily, once for strength and once for more of it. Zara watched her family shrink quietly under poverty and made a decision the way brave people always do. Not loudly, just firmly. She would go to the royal palace in Dara City. They were hiring domestic staff. The pay was modest, but modest was more than nothing, and nothing was what Kova was slowly becoming. Her mother held her face the morning she left. "Zara," she whispered, "the palace is not Kova. People there wear smiles that do not reach their eyes. Watch yourself." Zara kissed her mother's forehead and promised she would. She tied her belongings into a cloth bundle, hugged her siblings, still half asleep and smelling like warm bread, and walked the long road to Dara with her head up and her heart stead. The palace was larger, louder, and colder than she had imagined. Not in temperature, but in the way places built for power tend to be cold. Guards stood at every entrance. Servants moved in careful, practiced silence. People who had learned that being noticed too much was never a good thing. Her supervisor, Mama Rosa, looked her over once and said plainly, "You are pretty. That is a problem here. Keep your eyes low and your answers short." Zara thought that was the strangest welcome she had ever received. Within months, she understood exactly what it meant. She was good at her work. Quietly, almost stubbornly good. The other maids liked her because she was warm without being nosy. She befriended a nervous 13-year-old named Lena within her first week. "You have got this," Zara told her one evening as they swept together. "This place is big and strange, but you are bigger on the inside." Lena never forgot those words. 3 quiet months passed. Then, Prince Damon saw her crossing the courtyard, and everything Zara had carefully built began, without her knowledge, to fall. Prince Damon was not a man who pursued slowly. He was the kind of person who saw wanting and doing as the same step, with nothing in between. He had grown up watching his father, King Bello, command rooms with a single gesture, and somewhere in his young mind he had confused authority with ownership. So when he decided he wanted Zara's attention, he went after it the way he went after everything, directly, confidently, and with absolutely no preparation for the word no. It started small, deliberate rerouting of his morning walk to cross her cleaning rounds, lingering near the east wing with no real reason, pretending to inspect the walls while she worked. Zara noticed immediately. Women like Zara, careful women raised by mothers who whispered warnings, always notice. She kept her eyes low and her answers politely brief. One word where 2 would do. It was a quiet art form, the way she made herself unreadable without being rude. Prince Damon mistook her restraint for shyness, and her shyness for an invitation. One evening, he stepped directly into her path near the storage corridor. No pretending this time. He told her plainly that he admired her, that she was unlike any woman in the palace, that he could arrange better chambers, lighter duties, a softer life entirely. He said it with the casual ease of a man offering a stray cat a warm bowl of milk, generous but entirely on his own terms. Zara stood very still. She let him finish. Then, with a voice that did not shake even slightly, she said, "Your Highness is kind, but I came here to work and send money home to my family. That is all I am here to do." She stepped around him and continued walking. The corridor went silent. Prince Damon stood there, and what moved across his face was not embarrassment. It was something far more dangerous. The particular sting of a man who has never declined suddenly discovers that the word no has teeth. Something shifted behind his proud eyes, from desire into something uglier, the need to punish what he could not possess. Within 2 weeks, whispers moved through the palace like smoke under a door. The Aura Staff, King Bello's most sacred object, a carved rod carrying divine royal authority, had gone missing. The palace shook. King Bello demanded answers, and into that tense silence, Prince Damon stepped forward with a story already polished like a stone he had been holding for days. He had seen Zara near the king's corridor that evening, carrying a bundle. He had thought nothing of it. He paused here with practiced regret, but given what was missing, duty compelled him to speak. It was a masterful performance. It was also an entire lie. Zara stood before the council the following morning, alone in her plain uniform, surrounded by men who had already decided. She said she had never touched the staff, never entered the king's corridor. She said it clearly, without tears, without shouting, just the flat, honest truth of a woman with nothing to hide and everything to lose. Nobody investigated. The sentence was delivered before noon. Mama Rosa heard it first and pressed both hands over her mouth. Little Lena slid down the wall outside the chamber and sat on the cold floor, unable to speak. Zara received the verdict the way she received everything, standing upright, eyes open, spine straight. But her hands, pressed flat against her thighs, were trembling. They took her at dawn, not because dawn was necessary, but because powerful people who commit terrible acts prefer the in-between hours, early enough that the kingdom is still sleeping, late enough to call it morning and feel civilized about it. 4 guards came to the holding room, and Zara was already awake when they arrived. Not from fear exactly, but from the particular wakefulness of a person whose mind refuses to stop turning over an injustice, examining it from every angle, searching for the part that makes sense, finding none. She had spent the dark hours thinking about her mother, about Sade, who was probably at that exact moment rising before the sun in Kova, wrapping her cloth around her shoulders, preparing firewood, completely unaware that her eldest daughter had been sentenced to death in a palace that did not deserve her. Zara thought about her father Kofi's farm, about her siblings who still smelled like warm bread when they slept, about Lena getting braver day by day just by watching Zara move through the world without apology. She held all of it the way you hold something precious when you know it is about to be taken. When the guards came, she walked with them. She did not fight, she did not beg. She did not give Prince Damon the satisfaction of watching her collapse. If Kova had given her anything, besides her mother's wisdom and her father's patience, it was this. How you carry yourself in your worst moment is the truest thing about you. So she carried herself like Zara. Chin up, eyes forward, each step is deliberate. They led her through a narrow gate into the old forest behind the palace. The trees of Dara Forest grew tall and dense, sunlight arriving in thin, scattered pieces like light through broken fingers. Birds that should have been singing were silent. Even the forest understood something wrong was happening inside it. Prince Damon stood at the edge of the clearing. He had told himself twice he would not come, and yet here he was, arms crossed, face arranged into careful blankness, a man pretending to feel nothing while feeling everything. He watched Zara walk in, and something moved in his chest that he would spend the rest of his life refusing to call guilt. Zara was given her final moment to speak. She was quiet long enough that the council members shifted uncomfortably. Then she raised her head and spoke. Not loudly, she never needed volume for her voice to carry. She said she was innocent. She said truth does not die, it only waits. She forgave the guards following orders and the council members following fear. Then her eyes moved slowly, deliberately, across the clearing to where Prince Damon stood. She looked at him for a long moment. Then Zara drew a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her lungs and spoke her curse. Every child born of this bloodline will not see the morning of their 19th year. On the last night of their 18th birthday, they will follow me into the dark. As you stole my years, years shall be stolen from yours. This will not end until the truth is spoken aloud, in this place, by a mouth carrying real repentance. Not prayer, not sacrifice, repentance. Her voice did not waver once. Those present said the temperature dropped when she finished. Not dramatically, just quietly, the way a room changes when someone important walks out of it. The birds did not return. Zara was gone before the sun fully rose. 21 years old, innocent, buried without ceremony on the soft floor of Dara Forest. 3 months later, King Bello's firstborn daughter turned 18. The celebration filled the great hall with music and laughter. Then, at 11:59, the princess set down her cup, placed her hand over her heart, and quietly closed her eyes. She did not open them again. 43 years is a long time to watch children die. That is how long it took before anyone in the royal palace of Dara was willing to say the word curse out loud in a room with good lighting and sober minds. For the first decade, they called it illness. For the second, misfortune. By the third, they had run out of comfortable words entirely. But the dying continued, quiet, precise, and absolutely punctual, the way Zara had promised. Every child of the royal bloodline, every 18th birthday, every time, without exception, like a debt collector who never forgets an account and never accepts partial payment. Prince Damon outlived them all. He had fathered 7 children and buried every single one on the night of their 18th birthday. His first wife went silent after the third funeral and never truly returned from that silence. His second wife walked out through the eastern gate one morning with a single bag and the expression of a woman who has decided surviving matters more than loyalty to a cursed house. Damon did not stop her. He stood at the window and watched her go, because nothing remained in him that knew how to ask anyone to stay. He died at 67, quietly, in his sleep. When servants cleared his personal belongings, 2 junior chamberlains found it, wrapped in plain brown cloth, tucked beneath a false bottom in an old traveling chest. Dark, carved, and absolutely unmistakable. The Aura staff. The older chamberlain sat directly on the floor because his legs stopped cooperating. The younger stood with his mouth open long enough for a fly to nearly enter it. They looked at each other with the expression of people who have just understood something enormous, terrible, and deeply inconvenient. By this time, the king of Dara was a man named King Ade, grandson of King Bello, son of a father who had also watched his children perish one by one. King Ade was thoughtful in the way people become thoughtful when they grow up inside grief. He had consulted priests, made offerings, and commissioned prayers in 3 temples. Nothing shifted. The curse was not interested in religious negotiation. He had one son, Prince Kai, 17 years and 8 months old when the staff was found, which meant King Ade had 4 months to solve a problem 43 years in the making. He sent for Baba Sola immediately. Baba Sola was 91, lived alone at the far edge of the kingdom, kept 4 goats he spoke to by name, and had absolutely no patience for people who came to him only after exhausting every other option. When the king's messengers arrived, he was grinding pepper and did not stop grinding while they delivered their message. He sent them back with 2 words: he knows. King Ade came himself the following morning, alone, on foot, without his crown or robes of state. When Baba Sola opened his door and saw him standing there simply, something in his old face softened slightly. He let him in. He gave him water. He studied him the way very old people study things, like reading something written underneath the surface. "The staff was found," Ade said quietly. "I know," said Baba Sola. "Then you know she was innocent." "I always knew," the old man replied. "The question was never what happened to Zara. The question was always whether anyone with power would care enough to say it out loud." He told him what the curse required. Not ritual, not sacrifice. Truth, spoken publicly in the place where Zara died, by a voice carrying genuine repentance and not merely the desperation of a family trying to save its last child. He told him there was a difference between confession and repentance, and the curse knew that difference intimately. "There is a woman," Baba Sola added, almost as an afterthought. "A teacher in Uforo village. Her name is Nadia. Her grandmother witnessed Zara's trial. You will need her." King Ade nodded slowly, assembling something very heavy in his chest. "And my son?" he asked. Baba Sola looked at him with eyes that had seen too much history to offer false comfort. 4 months, she said firmly. "Do not waste them looking for a shorter road. There is no shorter road." The king walked home the long way, through the market, past ordinary people living ordinary lives that did not include burying children on their 18th birthdays. He watched a woman laugh over tomatoes. He watched 2 boys chase a dog around a water well. He watched the kingdom his ancestors had broken, moving through its evening, unaware that reckoning was finally, after 43 years, preparing to arrive. That night, he told Prince Kai everything. The boy listened without interrupting. When his father finished, Kai was quiet for a long moment. Then he said simply, "What do we need to do?" Not, "Will I be okay?" Just, plainly, "What do we need to do?" King Ade looked at his son and felt pride and sorrow arrive simultaneously, the way they always do when your child turns out better than the world gave them reason to expect. "We need to find Nadia," the king said, "and then we need to tell the truth." Nadia was not easy to find and even less easy to convince. She was 38, a primary school teacher in Uforo village, the kind of woman who marked papers by lamplight and spent her small salary buying pencils for children whose families could not afford them. Her grandmother, one of the maids who witnessed Zara's trial, had told her the story when Nadia was 7, again at 12, again at 16, each retelling carrying more grief and quiet fury. By the time her grandmother died, Nadia had the story memorized the way other people memorized prayers, not as performance, but as responsibility. When the king's messengers arrived at her classroom on a Tuesday afternoon, she made them wait outside until the lesson finished. She came to the palace 2 days later in her regular clothes, carrying a notebook. She sat across from King Ade and Prince Kai with the composure of a woman who has rehearsed a moment for 30 years without expecting it to actually arrive. When the king finished explaining, Nadia opened her notebook and looked at him steadily. 3 conditions, she said. King Ade nodded. Prince Kai leaned forward. This must be done public. Every village, every elder, every ordinary person who spent 40 years hearing rumors. Second, Zara's family name must be formally restored in every record this kingdom keeps. Third, a monument in the forest cleared where she died. One that tells the full story so children not yet born will understand what happened and what it cost. The room was quiet. "Agreed," said the king. "All 3. Nadia closed her notebook. "Then let us plan." They had 6 weeks. Word spread the way news travels in real communities, through market women, school teachers, village elders, and the man at the Uforo Junction who somehow always knows everything first. Everyone was invited to Dara Forest on the final evening of Prince Kai's 18th year. They came in hundreds. From Kova, Zara's village, her youngest surviving sister Mira, now 70 years old, walking with a cane, weeping the entire journey, made the trip supported by her grandchildren. Old Lena, now white-haired and small, came leaning on a walking stick, her daughter holding her hand the whole way. Nadia had insisted on torches rather than electric lights. She said Zara had died in a firelight and deserved to be honored in the firelight. By nightfall, the clearing glowed amber and gold, surrounded by hundreds of torches, looking less like a gathering and more like something sacred, which is exactly what it was. King Ade stood in the center. No crown. Prince Kai had suggested it the night before. "Baba," he had said quietly, "I think a crown would be the wrong thing to wear when asking for forgiveness." The king had looked at his son and thought, "He is better than this family deserves." The king spoke for 30 minutes. He told everything: Zara's arrival, Prince Damon's rejection, the false accusation, the trial that was not a trial, the staff found wrapped in plain cloth inside a dead man's chest. He spoke every name of every child the curse had taken, slowly, one by one, until the clearing was thick with names and people were weeping openly. Mira pressed her hand over her mouth and rocked where she stood. Then Prince Kai walked forward and knelt, fully on both knees, in the exact spot where Zara had stood 60 years earlier. He had no prepared speech. Nadia had told him not to prepare one. "If it is real, it will come," she had said. "If you prepare it, it is performance, not repentance." He knelt in the torchlit dark and said what was true, that he was sorry, that Zara deserved her full life, her family, her old age in Kova, that the crown of Dara had failed her completely, that he was asking, not demanding, not bargaining, for the chance to spend his life being the kind of leader she would never have needed to fear. His voice broke twice. He did not apologize for it. Then the torches flickered, all of them simultaneously, and burned brighter. At the edge of the clearing, between one breath and the next, she was simply there. 21 years old, plain maid's cloth, warm eyes. The face made strangers feel like old friends. Zara stood in the amber light and looked at everything. The kneeling prince, the crownless king, old Mira, old Lena, hundreds of witnesses holding fire in her honor. And she smiled. Not the smile of someone who has won. The smile of someone who has finally, after a very long time, been seen. The distant palace clock moved toward midnight. The forest held its breath. Prince Kai closed his eyes. Midnight came and passed. Prince Kai opened his eyes. He was breathing. The curse was gone. Not with thunder, not with spectacle, but with the quiet completeness of a debt honestly paid. Mira felt it leave the air the way you feel a storm pass. Not relief exactly, but the lightness of a sky that has finally said everything it needed to say. The monument was built within the year. Dark stone, Zara's full name and story carved into it. And at the base, 4 words Nadia had insisted upon above everything else. She was telling the truth. If this story moved something in you, that is because it was meant to. Truth does not need your defense. It only needs time. If you are carrying someone else's wrong opinion of you today, hold on. You have got this. It is okay to feel everything this story stirred in you. That means you are paying attention. Please like this video, subscribe to Tales by Zecora, share it with someone who needs it tonight, and comment below telling us which moment hit you hardest. We read every single one. Until next time, take care of each other. Good night.